Legends is presented by AT&T. It's all within your reach.
Credence means belief in. Clearwater means true, pure, and fine. Revival means a renewed interest in. Our special guest of the day, the Creedence Clearwater Revival.
In 1 year, when John Fogerty was leader of Creedence Clearwater Revival, he released 3 albums, wrote and sang 5 hit singles, and toured constantly. Then Fogerty faced a rebellion from his bandmates. In the aftermath, he dropped out of record-making for 10 years, lost the rights to the songs he wrote, and became enemies with the other members of Creedence, including his own brother. For the next 25 years, John Fogerty refused to play the songs that made him famous. He faced down depression, legal battles, and the loss of his songs. And then, just when he'd been counted out, he came back stronger than ever. John Fogerty is a legend. This is his story. John Fogerty's father, Bob, married Lucille Lytle in 1932 in Great Falls, Montana. The Depression weighed on the Fogertys. Family recreation was limited to playing cards, sharing the dinner table with friends, and dancing on Saturday nights. In the late 30s, Bob took a break from his job as a linotype operator at the Great Falls Tribune and headed west in a used Ford. By the time he and Lucille got to his sisters in San Francisco, they'd fallen in love with Northern California. Bob enrolled at UC Berkeley, and the Fogertys decided that California was their new home. By the beginning of World War II, Bob and Lucille had 2 sons, Jim and Tom. John Cameron Fogerty was born on May 28, 1945. Daniel and Bob Jr. followed. Those were happy days, but at home troubles were mounting between Lucille and Bob. Bob left the family in 1954. John was 9 years old. He took it hard.
At the time in the middle 50s, when I experienced divorce, you couldn't even say the word. I was so ashamed and so introverted about it. It was like having committed a crime and having a terrible disease all at the same time. I would say to a young boy with a vulnerable heart that had been through some painful things, you turn to music and it's your friend. You know, I guess some kids have a dog or, you know, your bicycle or whatever, or else it's just your room. And, you know, in my case, it was rock and roll. You should have heard the knocked-out jailbird sing that rock.
It was 1956, and Elvis was at the top of the charts. John fell in love with the rock and roll image. He spent the savings from his paper route on a Silvertone electric guitar from Sears. At Portola Junior High School in El Cerrito, he met 2 other kids who wanted to play rock and roll, Stu Cook and Doug Clifford.
It was actually in the 8th grade. I was walking by the music room, junior high school, and I heard authentic Fats Domino piano coming out of the music room, which was a sacrilegious thing in itself. But I had the records, and I knew what was coming out of there, and I looked in, the skinny little kids playing the piano, and I listened, and I walked up to him, and I said, "Hey, that's authentic Fats Domino." And he said, "Yeah," and I said, "You want to start a band?" He said, "Yeah, but actually I play guitar. So I'm looking for a piano player, and I've got a couple guys in mind, but come over to my house and we can practice, and that was John Fogerty.
And I remember early on, I can't quite tell you if it was the very first meeting, but it was very early on, I was thinking to myself, now wait a minute, am I joining his band or is he joining my band? Now remember, neither one of us, we're both alone, and it's just a figment of our imagination, but I decided very early, no, he's joining my band.
Doug brought in his pal Stu Cook on piano. The boys called themselves the Blue Velvets. John started hanging out at a local studio, watching how records were made. From time to time, he even played on a track. It was 1959, and John's older brother Tom had been singing with several groups. The Blue Velvets cut a record called Have You Ever Been Lonely? It featured Tom on lead vocals. John, Doug, and Stu were still in high school, but they were making records.
I saw a special, I think running on PBS, 2 episodes maybe. It was called Anatomy of a Hit, pretty ironic, and it was about the song Cast Your Fate to the Winds by Vince Giraldi, piano player with Fantasy Records. Having seen this special on TV, I decided to just kind of go over there and announce myself. See, you know, basically with the swagger of youth, say, would you guys like to have another hit?
Fantasy Records took a chance on the band. The Blue Velvets recorded one of Tom's songs called Don't Tell Me No Lies. When the record came out, the guys were shocked. Fantasy Records had changed the name of the band to the Gollywogs. They were embarrassed by the name and surprised that the record company could change it without even telling them. For the next couple of years, the band was forced to perform as the Gollywogs. John started to take over some of the lead vocals from his older brother. Their 4th single, Brown Eyed Girl, was a local hit in Northern California. John sang it. By 1965, the Vietnam War was heating up, and the Gollywogs were worried about the draft.
I got married on September 4th, 1965. About 3 months later or so, right like clockwork, here came my draft notice. My wife managed to call a guy in a local reserve unit, and that fella said, bring him down here, tell him to come down here. He heard, I think, the, let's say, the passion and the heartbreak in her voice.
John was allowed to join the Army Reserves. He was placed on 6 months active duty, but he did not have to go to Vietnam. By the time he got out of the reserves, his wife had given birth to their first son, Josh. By the summer of 1967, rock had changed. The psychedelic sound had captured San Francisco. Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead were local stars. The Gollywogs needed to be a part of the times. First, they had to ditch their name. The Gollywogs became Creedence Clearwater Revival. Doug, Stu, John, and Tom grew their hair and quit their jobs. They established a rigorous practice schedule. Up until then, we'd been a plug-in top 40 request bar band, and not very good, John said. John took over the lead vocal position from his brother Tom. Creedence cover of Susie Q hit the national charts. Some of the hippies on the San Francisco scene looked down on Creedence as a blue-collar cover band. During a sound check at the Avalon Ballroom, they were working on a new song called Born on the Bayou. Just as it was coming together, the stage manager cut off the electricity. You gotta stop now, we're letting the audience in, he said. And anyway, you guys aren't going anywhere. John was furious. Give me 1 year, he said, and I'll show you what we can do. In the next year, John Fogerty would prove all the doubters wrong.